Hello everyone. This is Moko from TerrorByMoko.com, and today I have a whopper of a reading for you guys. Ever since I posted the World Economic Trends prediction a few weeks ago, I've gotten so many requests to look up on the current events that are affecting the United States of America and the entire world, really. But since most of my viewers and subscribers are from the US, I'm going to be talking about the US. And yes, as you can see from the title, I've had to become creative about how I talk about this because I'm trying to avoid the YouTube censors. So we will be calling the man who dates edicts, and we will be calling the therapeutic that people are receiving for the current public health crisis, Vaselines. And I will add visual cues for when I'm talking about this, because I'm telling you, censorship is serious across all social media platforms. It is serious, and I just got started, so I'm not trying to get my channel taken down for this video, all right? And first, a disclaimer, because although I am a chemist, a research chemist, I am not a doctor, I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a vaccinologist, I am just a tarot reader with the science background. So if you have any health concerns about the Vaselines that are being given out, please speak to your doctor. And I hope you see a doctor who has a private practice and is not connected to a public hospital that receives federal funds. So there you go. All right. So this is going to be a pretty long video. I will try to cut off all the ramblings and my personal opinions. I'm going to go through a lot. So the mood of the country, what's happening with the Biden administration, because in my opinion, Biden and Kamala do not get along, but also the federal edicts, what's going on with the private sector, any more edicts that may be coming, both state, federal, and private, and social as well as, you know, Texas, the state of Texas versus the White House, because it looks like that's happening as well. All right, so let me get into this. I won't ramble for too long. Oh, that's two. Okay. Okay, so the first row, I'm asking about the general mood of the country, and I understand that this edict madness is going around all over the globe, but most of my subscribers and viewers and clients are from the United States, so I'm just looking at the United States. So the overall mood of the United States, you know, it's not that bad. It's just that so many people have so many opinions, so many things to say, and people are saying things right away without thinking about them first, and that's what's actually causing these fights. And meanwhile, you have folks in the middle who are kind of like, okay, I shouldn't say that they're in the middle, but it's almost like they're looking on at what's happening, and they're sort of like, yo, what's going on? It's almost like I got in mind, if anyone is old enough to remember Scooby-Doo, I got in mind Shaggy, how he was always high, you know? So if there was a fight going on within the group, he wouldn't know. I feel like that's what's happening with a lot of people in the country. They're just confused. They don't know what's going on. They see people are fighting and that folks are like actually attacking each other for their opinions. And other people, you know, sweet summer childs of the United States of America, they're just like, what is happening? What's going on? So the second row is what's happening to this country that we, the people, can't really see. Listen, when it comes to these edicts, the White House, the federal government, they're not playing with us. You know, they're they're really not playing with us. And I feel like in this card normally represents lawyers, so there are going to be battles, legal battles on both sides, all sides, whatever. We're about to get Dr. Seuss over here. There are going to be legal battles. There are going to be winners and there will be losers. But in terms of the American people, I feel like we're going to be upset about our money situation coming up very soon. Very soon, actually. And I feel like there may be some legislation about money that we won't like. And I think I'm already seeing it with the IRS requesting to track people's bank accounts if they have $600 or more, which, you know, that's basically everybody. So there's going to be legislation regarding money that we won't like. We may also enter a recession, depression. The financial people can correct me, I don't know, but we won't like what's happening with our money coming up soon. So, you know, I mean, it's a hot ass mess up top with the way we're interacting with each other and the things that we're not paying attention to, like these laws that are going to be put into place. We won't like that shit. we won't, but you know, what can you do? I'm just curious to see what's happening with this administration. Okay. So in general, the Biden administration, they feel fine. And this is not Biden, this is his administration in general. So I guess these would be his cabinet, as well as the people in the White House, the aides that are helping him to craft legislation or ideas, or to disseminate ideas that he allegedly supports. They feel fine, and I feel like they're very optimistic about the new treatments that are coming out for the current public health crisis. They feel good. But now I ask about Biden and Kamala specifically, because some of you may know that I do read on Discord as well as online. Like, you know, it's just very fun for me, and I have an inordinate amount of free time. So before, I predicted that Biden and Kamala would be the next dynamic duo, but I also felt that Biden didn't necessarily want Kamala. I feel like he was looking at Val Demings and Whitner. I forgot what her first name was, but she was the governor of Michigan, I believe, who all this crazy stuff happened with her last year with threats. He wanted those two. But he ended up with Kamala, and I feel like they kind of bump heads because Kamala has dynamic, very, very, very powerful, like king shit energy in her. Whether you like her or not, that's the kind of energy she brings. Whereas Biden, he usually comes across as very sensitive, very mellow, and not very aggressive, not really moving forward. He's someone who sits still, and this shows up again with this hangman with him. This is somebody who is just there. They're just sitting still. And listen, whether or not you agree with the president, with any of our presidents, I don't believe in disrespecting them. And I said the same thing for Trump for the last 4 years. I don't disrespect our presidents. But my cards are very clear when it comes to President Biden, that he's just there. And in my opinion, he's not necessarily in control. So when it comes to Kamala, she's good. And I feel like she gets along better with the administration than Biden does, but I don't necessarily think that this means that he's at odds with them. It's just that he's just there, that's it. But I asked, how are they getting along? Here's the devil. It's not good, okay? And part of this is because here's this Knight of Wands, here's this Nine of Swords, and also here is the Five of Cups. Their energies together, they're just all over the place. They don't know if they're backwards, going forwards, up or down. And I feel like because Biden and Kamala, they have different agendas, they have different ways of approaching things. And for Kamala, she's definitely more pragmatic, but she's also more forceful with her opinions. So this whole giggling stuff that you see from her right now, that's not the real Kamala. That's just Kamala who is trying to duck and dodge BS that's happening in the administration, as well as questions that she's receiving that she doesn't want to answer. So I mean, she has great energy, but just those two together, it's not cohesive. They're not on the same page, and it's causing a lot of strife. And I also think that it may be causing a lot of arguments between her people and his people. So if you're seeing, well, we are, so I shouldn't say if, but we're seeing a lot of contradictions coming from the talking heads from this administration. This is one of the main reasons why, because the two people, the president and the vice president, they are not on the same page, and there's a lot of ego in between them. So Biden, he's a very mellow person, but I feel like when someone rubs up against him and he doesn't like the way that this person is coming towards him, he can have an attitude. And the same goes with Kamala. She can have an attitude. She's very spicy. All right. So that's what's going on with them for now. Hopefully they'll be able to get on the same page, because if not, I feel like we would have a repeat of the last 4 years when people thought that it would be the next coming of Roosevelt. All right, so next we're going to talk about the edicts, and I will provide a definition of the word edict on the screen right now, because that's what I think they are. Okay, so I see. So, his administration, they truly feel like they are doing the right thing. And I know a lot of people feel that these edicts are evil, that there's an ulterior motive. And they very well could be from people outside of the administration, like say the manufacturers of these Vaselines. But in terms of the Biden administration, they feel like they're in the right. And the funny thing about them is what I get from them, and sometimes what I hear. I don't watch the news that often, because I think it's all propaganda, no matter what side you're on. But the funny thing about that is they're more concerned about being on the right side of history. And right now, they feel like they are. I mean, they feel like they are in the right. They know exactly what they're doing. They think that everybody should listen to them. Because they're in the right. The science is on their side. This is what they feel. They feel that the science is on their side. They're correct, and what they say goes. So they feel very optimistic about these edicts because they think that this is the right way to go. In terms of how long it's going to last, I mean, it's hard to say because, the United States is very unique. This is for anybody who doesn't live here. The United States is very unique because we have a federal government, but we also have states' rights. So the federal government could say, you should do this, you should do that. But certain states, like say Texas this week, certain states can say, screw you. They could say that. And we've saw that happening last year when this public health crisis first emerged, where, President Trump, he said one thing and the governors of certain states said another. So that's what's very unique about the United States. And that's why it's very hard about how long things like this will last. But I unfortunately, I feel like it's going to last quite a bit, probably for at least another year. But the thing about it is that it's going to be a mixed bag, where some agencies will obey and others they're just going to be like, screw you guys, so it's very hard to tell with a country this big. It should be more of an individual or like an agency type of thing. But in terms of the federal edicts, I see it going on for at least another year, to be quite honest. But it's definitely going to give the administration grief, but I also feel like this is going to be a worldwide thing, where I think people are just going to get fed up, and you're going to see more protesting. It's already happening in the Caribbean, in Europe, in Australia, all these places. But people are just going to get fed up, and they're either going to walk away from their jobs, they're going to protest, or they're just going to ignore what's happening altogether. And I think in the US, because we're not a country that likes to protest, George Floyd last year notwithstanding, we're a country that doesn't really like to protest. We just like to say screw you and do whatever we want. And I also see that in the background, there are going to be more lawsuits. It's almost like lawyers are, there are plenty of lawyers who don't want to touch this, but there are some enterprising ones who are going to be like, bet, we're coming. And I feel like we're going to hear about these lawsuits probably in the next couple of weeks. And I wouldn't be surprised if these things go to the Supreme Court. I'm going to ask about the edicts for private companies. So early September, so a little over a month ago, President Biden got on TV. He said that his patience was wearing thin with us, and he had a very stern tone of voice talking to us. Like I said, you guys should have never called him Uncle Joe, because now he's acting like he's our daddy. But he said that he was going to ask OSHA. He was going to request that OSHA create some sort of guidance that would require private businesses that have 100 or more employees to require the Vaselines in order to work. It's been over a month and this has not occurred yet. There's a legal reason why, but I won't get into that because I'm trying to leave my personal opinion out of it. But I'm going to ask what's going on with the OSHA process. Now that's very interesting. This is actually very interesting. So when I ask about how this process is going, I feel like the Biden administration is actually like, it's almost like a mic drop. They said it and then they just left it at that. So okay, so I will give my opinion. I think because the federal branch of the government cannot dictate what private entities do, which is why there has not been a law that was passed by Congress or even an executive order that addresses private entities. Okay, and it's conceivable that the reason why the Biden administration doesn't want to have a law is because they don't want it to be contested in the Supreme Court. So it's possible that the reason why they're walking away from this is because it's better for private businesses to feel threatened rather than to have a document that they could contest and say, hey, this doesn't seem right. So I feel like the Biden administration, it's almost like he did like, a little mic drop and just walked away. That, look, I said it. I told them to jump. Most businesses said how high. They did what I wanted. So now I'm done. That's the feeling that I'm getting here. As when it comes to OSHA, OSHA's like, Okay, so you said it. So where's our information? I mean, they're at a crossroads. I feel like OSHA, they can't act one way or another. You know, so I, in terms of OSHA actually giving guidance for this and telling companies you need to make this mandatory in order to work, I feel like their hands are tied. They won't be able to say anything, you know. So some businesses may be smart enough to know that this is what's going on, and some other businesses, you know, they may have contracts with the federal government and they're just going to do it anyway because they don't want to lose their contracts. So again, it's another mixed bag. And as for how OSHA feels about it, I mean, OSHA feels like they're fine just as they are. But in terms of how long this will last, again, just like the federal edicts, I feel like this is going to last for quite a while. It's actually going to stick with us for quite a while. But the thing that's going to happen is that they're going to realize that these edicts is a disaster for the workforce. And I feel like in terms of the private sector, oh wow, I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. In terms of the private sector, there's more power with the people than the people realize. And once they figure this out, they're going to have, it's going to be a wrap for, you know, a lot of these things. But of course, private businesses technically can do whatever they want. But there will be more private businesses who don't do this than those who do. So people who don't want to take this therapeutic drug, they can find other ways to work, you know? So there that goes. Okay, now this next topic is going to be something that I haven't seen in the news as widely as other edicts, but earlier in the spring, the Biden administration, they said that they were going to look for ways in order to enact interstate bans for people who don't want to take the Vaseline. And there's a doctor, I think her name is Dr. Leanna Wen. She's on CNN all the time, just talking crazy. She believes that it's not a constitutional right to be able to travel between states, but it actually is. You know, I don't know if this lady grew up here, but it actually is a constitutional right. But they've said that they have been trying to find legal ways in order to do this. So I'm going to look at it. Let's see if there's going to be an interstate edict. Ooh, buddy. Ooh, buddy. I feel like listen, they are looking for ways to push this through. They're looking for ways to push it through. And what's funny about this Emperor card is I mentioned earlier that President Biden, he normally has mellow cards that represent him. It's very interesting that he didn't show up here, but he usually has mellow cards that represent him. But sometime in the spring, and I think this is when they were discussing all of these edicts, right? Sometime in the spring, I noticed that his energy was switching over to this Emperor energy. And typically, this is the energy that Kamala has, but he was moving into this energy. And you know, I'm okay with the Emperor card, but a lot of people feel that he's a dictator. And you know, he can be, you know. And I feel like this is the energy that the United States is moving into. Wow, I did not expect that, because the last time I read on this, I got that, you know, it wouldn't happen. But it looks like they're making deals right now. I feel like, but I also feel like there only a handful of states would actually do this. Probably the liberal states, but only a handful of states will actually do this. But the way that it's going to be done is going to be so stupid that people will get through anyway. You know, there's just, and see, look, it is going to affect our travel, but I feel like Americans are so crafty that we're going to find a way to get past this anyway, you know? So just stay tuned, because I do feel like they are looking for a way to have these interstate bans. Okay. Now, this is another edict that that the administration has been talking about. They've been discussing enacting, or at least suggesting, more edicts for our transportation. So what that means is they're asking for, or they're requiring for people to take the Vaseline in order to travel by air and by land. So I asked about airplanes, public trains, as well as public buses. So things like Greyhound or Megabus. Well, actually Megabus isn't public, but things like that. It's looking like it's a no. Because these people need money, okay? And I'm not sure of the amount of people in this country who are fully Vaselined. But I feel like there's a sizable chunk who are not, and these businesses are looking at it as, you know, we will lose a lot of money. So they're saying, if you want us to do, they're talking about, they're saying this to the Biden administration, if you want us to do this, you're gonna have to pay up. You're gonna have to pay up, because we're gonna be losing money. And here for buses, no. So I mean, even if it comes to pass for air and train, you can still ride a bus. You can get on that Megabus or that Peter Pan bus or the Greyhound. You will still be able to travel, all right? Or you know, your own car. But it looks like for now there won't be any Vaseline edicts in order to ride trains, planes, and public buses. So there we go. All right. So I asked, we have so many edicts, it's really hard to keep up. So I'm just going to call this social edicts. So these are things like requiring to have the Vaseline in order to enter a restaurant. Like, that's what's going on in my city. Legit. Popeyes, you can't go into Popeyes. I mean, not that you should be eating Popeyes right now, because the outcome of the current public health crisis, how well you'll do against fighting against that depends on how healthy you are, and your health depends on what you're eating. So don't be going to Popeyes. But I'm just saying, you have to be doubly Vaselined in order to walk in to Popeyes in my neighborhood. So, you know, it's crazy. But I'm asking about the social edict. So this means going to restaurants, going to concerts, art galleries like here in my city, certain public places like a museum. How long will these last? So I have the East Coast, the South, the Midwest, as well as the West Coast. I feel like the West Coast, they love that shit. Oh, I shouldn't curse. But I feel like the West Coast, in terms of the government, they actually love that. But again, I keep getting this like this eight months to a year type of thing, where I feel like that's when, as a whole, it will basically drop away. But I get 8 months to a year where this thing is just going to be non-existent, basically. But specifically for the East Coast, people are leaving. And I said this before, I think it was on a Discord chat randomly a couple of months ago, that whenever this is enacted, people are going to leave. There won't, and not only that, people will leave the states, but also the cities. They're going to migrate elsewhere, and give other regions of the country a boost. And these cities, especially on the East Coast and maybe the Midwest, who do things like this, they're going to be upset that they don't have as much revenue as they thought they would have. And I think that's happening now on certain East Coast cities where business owners, because business owners, most of them are being forced to do this by their mayors and governors, they've already said that they've lost between 40 to 60% of sales from an already depressed economy. So I think that's going to inspire a lot of these people to just cut this crap out, because they're going to realize that it's not actually doing anything, to be quite honest, but is also hurting their bottom dollar. So again, 8 months to a year, that's when you'll see, for the most part, that this is going to be a thing of the past. And for the South, I mean, I'm sure that some places in the South are doing this, but I like the South doesn't give a damn. The South really doesn't give a damn. And in the Midwest, I feel like certain cities are working on their own type of thing, but you know, I'm not sure if they're actually going to go through it or if they're going to go as hard as the East and West Coast. And as for the West Coast, maybe 3 months, who knows. It all depends on who's elected and who isn't. And I think it also depends on the states, because I feel like really it's actually there really are only 3 states on the West Coast, so it's really just those 3. I mean, I don't mean to be dismissive about it, because I have a lot of family on the West Coast as well, who some agree with what's going on and some don't. But you know, they're complicit. You know, they agree with what's going on. So I think for the West Coast, it's going to last much longer than the rest of the country. But again, people will migrate to places who have public health policies that they agree with. You know, whether you're for or against edicts, people will naturally migrate to where they want to be. But again, just like the federal edicts, 8 months to a year, that's when you'll see a lot of this stuff just calm down. And there may be some regions of the country who just, you know, 3 months, you know, and that's that. Okay, now, so I am filming this on October 13th. And I believe yesterday, October 12th, the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, I don't know what his first name is, he signed, I believe it's an executive order saying that no entity in the state of Texas will be allowed to have their own edict. And I think that kind of goes against conservative policies, because they tend to be, you know, against big government. So it's very ironic that he is interfering with other private entities and what they want to do. But again, you know, the federal government is doing the same thing, so we're all a bowl of irony, all right? But he signed that executive order, and in his Twitter announcement, he said that he is Vaselined and he supports Vaselines, and he thinks that people should be Vaselined. But he feels like the government should not overreach, and that they shouldn't be firing people and denying them unemployment benefits based on their health choices. So, you know, let's see if his executive order has any teeth, how the Biden administration feels, and whether or not the Biden administration will do anything about it. Also, another thing that's very ironic is that they have a very restrictive abortion ban. Well, I mean, it's not an abortion ban, but it's basically limiting abortions to six weeks. So again, a bowl of irony. Okay, so let's look at the state of Texas versus the Biden administration. Interesting. Okay, so I asked, you know, what's going on with, I believe his first name is Greg Abbott, but I'll just say Governor Abbott. What's going on with Governor Abbott, and what's the energy around him? He's fighting, and he feels like, so again, just like the Biden administration, they feel like their edicts is the right thing to do. I mean, he feels like what he's doing is the right thing to do. He feels like he's defending principles, he's defending his people, but he also feels like he's defending his economy. And I feel like for both sides of the argument, at the end of the day, this is mostly about the economy and making sure that people are healthy enough to work. That's basically what it is. But for him, he feels like he's defending the people, but he's also defending their right to work. And by defending their right to work, he's also defending, you know, the state's healthy economy, because I feel like Texas is maybe top 5 or top 6 in terms of the amount of money that they generate for this country. So he feels like he's in the right. I also asked, does his executive order have any legal standing? It does. It really does. We have a Bill of Rights. So those are the first 10 amendments of the Constitution. And we also have amendments to that Bill of Rights, which creates our entire Constitution. States do have rights, as we saw with the 1863 Civil War. And I mean, what they fought for wasn't, I mean, they probably felt they were right at the time. They were probably fighting for their economy. I really hate to keep bringing this up, but that's just the feeling that I get from everything that's happening in the States right now, where people are separating and they're changing sides and they're moving to places of the country that they agree with the spirit of. So I mean, that's just the energy that I'm getting. So I mean, forgive me if I keep bringing up the Civil War, but that's just what I get. But his executive order does actually have legal standing. And I feel like the government, the Constitution, it's actually on his side. And you know, full disclaimer, I didn't think so. But my cards are telling me that yes. And this bottom row, I'm asking Joe Biden, what does he think, or what is his administration's opinion on this? I feel like they agree that his executive order does have legal standing. And I mean, the Biden administration does not want this to come to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court does not want this to go to the Supreme Court. You know, okay, so I'm going to go on a very small rant. The things that are happening in this country is, one, because of money, because of a centralized bank, but also two, because our elected officials do not want to do their jobs. So Congress doesn't want to do their jobs. They don't want to vote for shit. And the Supreme Court doesn't want to do their jobs. They don't want to discuss controversial topics of the day. So yeah, his executive order does have legal standing. And I feel like the Biden administration, they want to find a way to kill it, but the only way to do that is to go to the Supreme Court. And about the Supreme Court, I think someone's going to pass away. I've been seeing this for a couple of months, but I think someone is going to pass away. So actually, let me ask another question. So, like I said, the Supreme Court does not want to handle this. But I feel like there may be a whistleblower who will kind of force, what am I going to say? Maybe not the Supreme Court, but the lower court. So maybe like a state Supreme Court or just federal judges. There's going to be a whistleblower who how soon? You know, because I keep getting 8 months to a year. So I feel like that may be what ends all of these edicts, because I feel like there's going to be a whistleblower who's just going to illuminate, you know, people who've been doing wrong. Let me draw more cards. Yeah, I think there's going to be a whistleblower who's going to talk, and they're going to illuminate the wrongdoings that have been happening. No matter what you think about the Vaselines and the public health crisis and the decisions that have been made, someone, or it could be a group of people, they're just going to come out and just blow the lid off of this. And I think that's what's actually going to end these edicts that are going on, rather than, you know, some long drawn out Supreme Court case. Because again, the Supreme Court, they're basically cowards. They don't want to touch this at all. There's going to be a person or a group of people who are going to blow the whistle on certain things that have been happening behind the scenes that should not have been happening. And I think it's going to be related to the public health crisis. And decisions that were made about it. And I think that is what's going to stop these edicts and not necessarily a Supreme Court case or just one lawyer or class action lawsuit. So the final part of this Biden versus the state of Texas, I want to see if Governor Abbott will be reelected. I'm not sure exactly when he's up for reelection, but let's see. Oh. Wow. I mean, right now, that's a resounding yes. Look. That's a resounding yes. And I mean, look, also this move to sign that executive order for his state, that also could have been a political move to ensure that he gets reelected. If it was, smart move on him. Absolutely smart move on him, because it's showing me that yes, actually he, right now, as of right now, if he keeps going the way that he is going, yeah, he's going to be reelected, and it's actually going to be, you know, it won't be hard at all. It's going to be a landslide if he even has a challenger. Wow. All right, smart, good for him. And I guess good for the people who still want him to be governor. So I've posted on Instagram, and I've said that I actually see Americans fighting each other for a very long time, that we're going to be divided. So I really do want to look at this Civil War question, because it's been coming up more and more often. And now that we're out of Afghanistan, America's going to need another war. I hate to say it like that, but that's basically what it is. So let's see what's going to happen with our country, because I do feel that something is brewing. I do feel that we are heavily conflicted, and that, you know, the divide between, I guess, the left and the right is so great. Although I don't believe that it's a left or right thing. That's how it's manifesting. But I feel like it's people who are for autonomy and people who prefer to have a government take care of them. And in my opinion, neither is right or wrong. They're just preferences, but that's essentially what's happening. You know, so let's see. I see. Okay. I see. So, actually, let me take these out so that you can see the initial cards that I received, and I will put these back on. So it's not that we're going to have a civil war, because I think I mentioned something like this before. It's not that we're going to have a civil war. It's just that emotionally, mentally, our ideologies are so. It's almost like we're the antithesis of each other. I mean, it's not an oxymoron. It's just that two highly opposing ideas that they just can't exist in the same space. And here, because on the second row, I asked about the divide in the country. What's going to happen is it's not going to be a civil war. What's going to happen is that people will just migrate to places that have rules that they agree with. So yes, the divide is going to get worse, sadly. But the people who want to be autonomous, they're going to go where they want to go. And the people who want to be taken care of by the state, they're going to go where they want to go. I also see people leaving the country, period, and just not coming back. So people will leave the country and they just won't come back because it's like, you know, we really can't take this. But I think what's actually going to further divide us is going to be the money situation. And I looked at this in the World Economic Predictions for like the fall, and also I'm going to look at it in terms of our Pluto return, because that's coming up next year. Well, actually, we're going through it right now, but it's coming up next year. We're going to feel it more then. But this money thing, the divide between the very rich and the very poor, that's going to get worse. That is going to get much, much worse. But I feel like once that happens, and once people move or once people migrate to states that they agree with, they're going to start building communities and people will start to relate to each other differently. So the money situation won't be that great. And I feel like this is probably going to be hyperinflation or shrinkflation, and that other inflation where you used to get services for free, but now service providers are going to be nickel and diming you. So that's going to increase. And because that increases, people will be maybe not bartering. I mean, I don't think we're going to get that bad, but I think people will, you know, do favors for each other more within their community. And they're going to be a little bit more neighborly, because buying things from a store, it's going to be very expensive. So I do see that the middle class is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. The divide is going to get worse with us. People will migrate to different parts of the country. Some of them will just leave the country. And I mean, if you are a person who has like African, European, or whatever ancestry, you should start looking up ways to have a passport of a different country so that you will be more free to move about the world. Because I think that people just leaving and living in, you know, random places like Costa Rica, something like that, I think that's going to be more commonplace. So now let's take these off and put these cards back. Let's see if I remember how these cards were. So it's here, but I'm pretty sure I already talked about this. Yes. So again, people will learn to be more neighborly. So again, once they move to the regions of the country that they, you know, have a better energetic vibe with, whatever you want to call it, they're going to be upset with where they were, but once they go to where they're meant to be, it's going to be much nicer. People will be more neighborly. They'll have more contracts and contacts with each other. You know, it's similar to what's happening now. So like in my area, a 5-gallon bottle of water went from $6.99 to $7.99. And then within the span of 3 weeks, it went to $13.99, but then the company said, we'll give you a discount for $11.99. So because of that, I bought my water before that price hike, but now I told my elderly neighbor, I said, hey, listen, I have all this stuff, so if you need anything, just let me know. So it's going to be a vibe like that. That once all these prices increase, people are going to be a little bit more willing to help each other out because they have to. But in terms of this divide, the fighting is going to get worse. The fighting between us is going to get worse. But I mean, you know, we have guns, we have weapons, so yes, people, you know, murder rates will increase. But I also feel like the words, verbal sparring with each other, that's going to get worse. So, you know, listen, just stay off social media. And if you have family members or friends who really cannot have a civil discussion while disagreeing, you know, just don't, I mean, I hate to say it, but just don't talk to them anymore. You know, something like that happened with me last week where I asked a family member, hey, I don't want to talk about this, but this family member kept going on, and I don't like disrespecting people, so I just hung up. So, you know, I mean, there unfortunately there's going to be more of that, because once people marry themselves to a certain ideology, they have to keep going because of sunk cost theory, you know. It's just like a bad relationship. You kind of feel stupid that you were in that relationship for such a long time, so you stay in it even though it's bad for you. So that's going to increase. But the thing is that people will find their tribe. They will find their place, and it may be with people that you never thought you had anything in common with, you know? So, you know, that's going to be the extent of our civil war. That I guess it's going to be a cold civil war where people will just be separated by ideas and geographical locations, and that's that. So, you know, I didn't expect to go there, but you know, there we have it. For personal readings, just go look in the description box. I have my website there. I also do tarot scopes on TikTok as well as Instagram on Sundays and Mondays, so you can check me out there. And sometimes I'll pull a card for you guys. I don't want to do pick a cards on this channel too much because I want to discuss celebrities and current events more than do pick a cards, you know. But for a personal reading, go to my website, like and subscribe, share this video, all that YouTuber stuff, and I will see you with a celebrity reading next week. Bye.